Hey guys, welcome back. Sports with Mono and Mono. It's April 1st, 2019. Steve, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show.
So, a lot of sports going on, so let's jump right into it, of course. March Madness.
And madness it has been.
Oh, my
Not
goodness.
disappointing.
Unbelievable games. Unbelievable games.
Yes, my bracket has been busted.
All right, well, let's full disclosure here.
I got nobody in the Final Four. Nobody.
I'm still hanging on to Virginia for pulling it out. Like I said, I'm a big Tony Bennett fan, and I think they got a good shot. I mean, I don't, like I said, we talked about Tom Izzo last week, or I don't bet against him, but I like Virginia's chances. I'm sticking with it.
I mean, Duke obviously getting knocked out, I think, is probably the top story. The prohibitive favorite to win this. I had them in the final game against the Carolina Heels.
Yeah.
Not to be. You got to tip your hat, though, to the four teams that just made it, especially the newcomers, Auburn and Texas Tech. First appearance for both schools in the Final Four.
And a couple things I noticed. This kid Harper for Auburn, he may be the fastest basketball player I've ever seen. I mean, he is impossible to catch.
Well,
I mean,
he's
and he scored some huge points.
huge.
That's why they're where they are. I mean, wow, what a ball player he turned out to be.
But the Michigan State Duke game was spot on. Great.
Great.
Good game. You can't fault Zion. He did everything he could.
Yeah.
I've touted R.J. Barrett, and I got to tell you, there was a stat that they said. I think in the last minute or so in these games, if they're losing or something, in the last minute, he's 0 for 9 from the field in crunch time.
I was just gonna say he missed a lot of big shots. But
I found that odd because when you watch him, he's a really talented ball player.
no question.
But at the bottom line is, they're a freshman-laden team, right? But listen, I put stock in them. I figured, with this Zion kid, and what can I say?
Listen,
Is their season a failure? Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, well, when you got one of the best starting five in college basketball, and you don't win a national championship. Yeah,
You don't even make it to the Final Four, let alone win the national championship.
But I'm not gonna hang it on Barrett because look, I mean, this kid from Wolford, who's lights out all up to the Sweet 16. Just went cold. You get a cold night. That happens. But I got to tell you, I'm going to tell you right now that the best player in this tournament. And I'm going to say it because I actually brought this up. I had him getting knocked out in the first round. Was Purdue? This kid Carson Edwards.
Yeah, he had a wonderful tournament.
Oh my God!
I think he had the record for 3-pointers in the tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
And that kid Ryan Klein too, the white kid, white guard, money shots the other night. Right? They lost a tough game, man.
That kid Edwards really, he tore it up. I mean, I think he probably averaged 25 points.
He had a great tournament. I think I'm in agreement that he was probably the best player in the tournament.
Yeah, didn't know anything about him, but I couldn't have been more impressed with a guy like that.
Yeah.
Wow, it was awesome.
And Virginia is back, so kudos to you for mentioning that. Their first Final Four appearance since Big Ralph in 1984. Been a long, long time.
Yeah, and certainly been the 80s. I know that. Sure.
And I like their matchup against who they got. Virginia, Auburn, and is it Michigan State, Texas Tech? I think the matchup is.
I believe so.
Right.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier in the show, I don't know, a week or two in our tournament show, this Bruce Pearl just makes me vomit. Good coach, X's and O's, but this guy, as a trail of recruiting violations a mile long.
Well, that only goes to show.
It's at Auburn, and I'm going to make a prediction. Auburn will be on probation in a year or so. Don't don't be surprised, and I'm going to throw that out there. That's how much lack of respect I have for this guy.
But exactly right. I mean, Auburn, Pearl gets there, and now they're in the Final Four. I mean, you got these kids that are just great players and standing up tall, but they couldn't get a basketball player, for 40 years.
Right.
All of a sudden. So, they'll be on probation in 5 years.
I can name 2 Auburn players.
Barkley
and Chuck Person. That's it, and Chuck Person's going to jail. He's an assistant coach, and he got caught up in the bribery thing and so on and so forth.
Yeah, he's going down. He actually pleaded guilty, so he's going to probably serve some time.
Right. But let's tip our hat again. Coach Izzo of Michigan State back in the Final Four.
God, is he not great?
He is great. I mean, from an X's and O's, when he dialed up that shot, the kid was cold all day, hadn't made a shot, and Izzo is kind of sarcastic, like the Monahan brothers have a little sarcasm in them. But I overheard him, and Izzo after the game was over, told the kid when he came back to the bench, "Are you gonna make a shot or what?" "I'm making the next one, coach." And listen, he dialed this kid's number and swish from 3.
I know, and a lot of people came down on him for barking at that kid Henry, 3 games ago. But
that's Tom Izzo.
That's Tom Izzo.
Absolutely,
he loves the kid.
Right.
But and I don't know if anybody's had more offers to go to the NBA or any other school in the country. He is so Michigan State.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. And it's so awesome. I couldn't be happier that if Krzyzewski's out, then I'm a big fan of Tom Izzo to win this all.
Right.
I really am.
I can't say I'm disappointed Kentucky lost, because I'm not really a Calipari fan as well. So when he loses, we have a sister that lives in Kentucky, so sorry to our sis.
And I have a nephew that actually attends the University of Kentucky, so of course we're a little
biased on thug coaches, and I put Calipari in there.
I actually met John Calipari like 15 years ago. I was actually sleigh riding with my daughter in your town, Oakland, at Indian Hills, and I talked to Calipari for about a half an hour about basketball. Very knowledgeable guy, but
Yes.
I mean, I can't say how his ethics are, but it was pretty interesting.
Right.
He was actually the coach of the New Jersey Nets at the time.
Yeah. Right.
So
the Final Four this coming weekend, and again, you got 2 new teams in there, never been there, and you got 2 basketball traditionalist teams.
Sure, Michigan State and
right.
Virginia. Yeah.
So
and listen. So we'll talk about the Final Four next week on our next show. But in full disclosure, the NIT, I know that's still going on, or it's going to finally finish up. And I had North Carolina and Xavier, at least one of those 2 teams win them.
North Carolina State.
NC State, and neither one of them are there. So believe it or not, I think the final is going to be like Lipscomb.
Right. Good luck.
I don't even know where they are. I don't know where they're from, but they beat North Carolina State, so they beat them by 1 point.
Yeah.
It was a great game. So the NIT wraps up, I think tomorrow. Tomorrow might be the final, but I just wanted to make sure you guys all know, just because I got Virginia to win the NCAA, I took a bath on the NIT.
Okay. Duly noted.
So let's move on. That's great, and we'll talk about the NCAA next week. Opening day, baseball.
Opening day.
And of course, obviously, the whole story is now that the Red Sox, they started out 1-3. I guess they're 1-3.
Well, they're pitching. They opened up in Seattle. They scored runs, the Red Sox, but they're pitching.
They gave up a lot.
Gave up more runs than they scored, so they were off to a 1-3 start.
And they only have 158 more games.
Right. No, I wouldn't hit the panic button yet, as neither as I would in the Bronx. But Yankees had a nice win on opening day, but the last 2 have been god awful, leaving tons of runners on base
against a minor league franchise.
Right, and if anybody out there could name 3 Orioles right now, please email the show, sportswithmono@gmail.com.
Well, one thing we did learn from watching the Orioles for 3 games was that Chris Davis may be the most overpaid baseball player in the history of baseball.
He is absolutely
Oh my goodness.
up there, and they're stuck with him. They owe him a ton of money.
Oh my goodness.
And listen, I saw there was a stat about the Orioles. I think they turned over maybe 11 players from last year, I want to say, from Tim Beckham to Jonathan Schoop to Adam Jones to Zach Britton and
A
on
guy
and
named
on.
Machado.
Some guy named Machado who's off to a slow start on the coast.
But boy, I mean, this Davis, like I said, he makes so much money. It's like, Joe Charbonneau. Remember when Rookie of the Year for the Indians back in the 80s?
Even like Paul O'Neill and who did the game. It's like, once you get 2 strikes on Davis, or once you get 1 strike on Davis,
You could throw him a beach ball and he won't hit it.
the at-bat is over.
Oh my goodness. 1 season, steroid induced, and he hits 45, 50 home runs, and he hasn't done anything since.
Right. So the Yankees need to rebound, obviously. They got the Tigers coming in tonight. Stanton's on the DL. 10-day, little bicep strain.
What, from striking out like 8 times in the series?
Mr. Judge had several strikeouts himself. Again, they just left a ton of runners on base.
And look, I like Stanton a lot, but I mean, when he swings and misses, it's like Dave Winfield swinging at a curveball.
Yeah, and
misses by 5 feet.
I actually put Stanton. Once he gets 2 strikes on him too, he's another one that I'm like.
He'll never see a fastball with 2 strikes.
That's correct. I mean, but listen. So the Yankees are off to a 1-2 start. The Mets. Let's talk about the Mets. Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. So Jacob deGrom started and was lights out once
That
again.
was a great opening day matchup with
6
deGrom
innings.
versus Scherzer, and Scherzer pitched lights out too.
Sure. Scherzer gave up 2, and deGrom gave up nothing.
I just, like I said, we talked last week. I just don't see the Mets having enough. I'm not going to think that Pete Alonso is going to be the next.
Well, he's one of their top prospects. He's a kid,
Okay,
though.
but
But
they
the
don't
Mets,
have much.
Yeah, but the Mets, winning 2 out of 3 in Washington, that's a good thing. They still have their home opener coming up this week, and they got off to a good start. Another thing was kind of eye-popping on opening day was I actually watched the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks on opening day. 8 home runs by the Dodgers, which is
Opening day record.
no doubt.
Right.
I said after 6, I said this has got to be a record, but they were crushing it off Arizona. And in total, 46 home runs were hit on opening day, which tied a previous record from maybe 10 years ago or so.
And you start to ask yourself, is it because these hitters are better or the pitching is getting worse? I mean, I don't know.
I also had a conversation with the philosophy of hitting has taken this turn to where it's home runs and you're fine with a strikeout, but these guys, their arc on their bats, the way they swing, that's just the way it is. That's why the averages have dropped significantly.
I know, but these terms, exit velocity on a home run. God, if they had that when Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle played, I mean, forget it. I mean,
right, but if you look at, and I had this conversation recently with somebody. So what, 30 years ago, you could count Rod Carew was batting .388 and Brett's behind him at .366 and Boggs is at .350, right? And on and on and on and on.
nobody's going to hit.
Alan Trammell at .320, and that could go on, right?
Yep.
And now you got what? Altuve is the standard bearer at what, maybe .350 or so, crazy number in today's world. But after that, there's probably 4 or 5 guys batting over 300, 320,
I know.
310. So my point is, the shift in batting philosophy is in full swing now. With
And
the
what do you
power,
attribute this to? This
bigger,
whole baseball
faster, stronger.
analytics? Is that
Yeah.
what we're talking about now?
bigger muscle guys, and that's what it is. It's this sabermetric stuff that comes into play by where, a 3-run home run is that's what they're looking for.
Wow.
This small ball, you're never going to see anybody like Ricky Henderson steal 130 bases, and we could go on, but the only reason we're bringing that up again is 46 home runs on opening day.
And again, like I said, I've had this conversation. I've always thought the National League pitching is certainly less than the quality of American League pitching, and that's why you see 8 home runs from the Dodgers on opening day.
Yeah, well, Zach Greinke too is the pitcher for the Diamondbacks. He's only making what, $30 million a year, Zach?
30.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, there's no more Rod Carews. There's no more George Bretts. These guys that can just come up and they're going to get at least 2 hits a day. Next day, 3 hits, maybe 4.
Right.
It's either hit it over the wall or done.
That's pretty much what baseball has gone to. So.
But let's bring up one guy that's he's gotten off to a great start. This kid Yelich, right?
Right.
4 home runs. I mean, I know Goldschmidt's got 4, but again, that's the National League, so I don't take much credence in that. But
yeah, he's the 6th player in Major League history to homer in the first 4 games of the season.
But Yelich is the reigning MVP.
He is, and this kid was a Miami Marlin, and Derek Jeter traded him. And we looked up last year, January of 18. The kid had an MVP year.
Yeah.
I can't tell you top of my head what they got back in return. I would imagine pitching and so on and so forth. But this kid looks like a really good, solid player. I think he's like 27 now, 28.
27.
And the other thing we looked up was he is the 4th Brewer to win the MVP, joining Robin Yount, Raleigh Fingers, and Ryan Braun with an asterisk because sports with mono and mono are not very kind to the steroid guys.
No.
And Ryan Braun had one great year, and
he certainly hasn't put up any kind of numbers since they tested him.
Right, and also I still remember his ridiculous defense on I didn't do it, and
it was in the Gatorade. Right, yeah,
right, okay. But yeah, we just wanted to mention him. This watch out for Christian Yelich. He is becoming a superstar.
And the Brewers are a solid team.
No, they are. Yeah.
Came close
a
couple times, but
they got talent there. So those are pretty much the highlights on opening day, I think. It's a long season, as you know.
Yeah,
so,
like I said, only 155 games, 58
58.
games.
And, we'll cover baseball all year long. So.
We certainly shall. So let's move on. How about, listen, I know obviously we're 10 days away from Augusta and the Masters, right?
We are, yeah.
So yesterday was the WGC, which I don't get. I don't get this whole match play thing. I'm a little confused by the way that the PGA has moved the players and all this other stuff prior to the Masters.
Right.
But I got to say, listen, this kid Kisner, he got spanked last year in it, and he came back this year.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I'm not a big, after this whole Kuchar controversy, I'm glad he got his.
I was rooting for Kisner. Are you kidding? I'm still pissed at Matt Kuchar.
Me too.
On the caddy gate thing.
I don't think I could ever win him back.
No, and Kisner, like you said, last year, I think he lost to Bubba Watson. I think he was down like 5.
Oh, he got spanked by Bubba
I think the first 5 holes or something, he was down. But he fought back. I think he lost 7-6 last year. But he's in contention. He's playing. He's making a name for himself the last couple of years.
Oh, look, I mean, they put a lot of emphasis on this WGC, this match play thing. It was double elimination until the weekend kind of thing.
Right.
So even Woods lost a match, and then he came back. But listen, this is all. I don't expect to see Kisner or Kuchar anywhere near the top of the leaderboard in Augusta.
I do not either.
So I think this is the year. I know. Listen, putting all the favorites up in front, but I like Dustin Johnson's chances to get his first green jacket. I think that's going to solidify him as one of the top players. I know he's the number one guy. And I told you a couple of weeks ago, I like this kid Fowler. I'm not sure if it's going to be the Masters, but I look for him to win at least one of these majors this year.
Okay.
He's due. He's due.
I didn't put him in Sergio territory. It took Sergio forever to finally break through in a major.
Oh,
I'm not a Sergio fan.
Not at all.
I don't. He's a good golfer. I'm not knocking his skill.
But he won a Masters, so he gets a free pass here.
Yeah, but he's not one of my favorites. I could tell you that.
Who do you like? Who are you thinking about?
I'm gonna wait a little bit longer to make my prediction. You can't go wrong with Dustin Johnson as one of the favorites. McIlroy's got a victory a couple weeks ago,
and he's starving for that.
And
green
he
jacket.
wants that green jacket, and I wouldn't discount him.
No, me either.
You can't discount Eldrick. For whatever reason, you just can't.
Well, listen, I got to tell you, I mean, it's as good a comeback as he's made. I'd be shocked if he comes back and wins a Masters. I mean, if he does, it's going to be one of the greatest stories in sports.
It's going to be the highest rating in the history of golf.
Probably. Right. But I just, like I said, I've had conversations with my friend Matty about this, and, I bet him like 10 years ago that he said Woods would never win another major, and I said, oh, absolutely he would. He's what? He's closing in 39 now, maybe.
No, he's 42.
Is he 40 already?
Yeah, he's 42.
Right.
Going to be 43 in August, I think.
But if that does happen, that would be a big story. But I think
there's too many, like we talked about a couple shows ago. There are just too many solid young golfers out there. Like a guy like John Ram or something. You mentioned him a couple weeks ago.
Big fan.
I mean, you can really, I don't know. I mean, there's so many.
And we can't dismiss, of course, the Jordans and Justin Thomases and so forth.
Patrick Reed is the defending champ, right? So you just can't be surprised when it comes Master time.
And who haven't we even mentioned in this conversation over the past few weeks was Brooks Koepka, right?
Sure. Right. He's been quiet
that
so
might be
far
a
out of the
sleeping
gate.
lion right there.
Absolutely. How could we forget about him? He won 2 majors last year.
Yeah.
So the list is endless, and
that's coming
even
up.
An old guy, Furyk, has been playing well the last 3 weeks. Right, he's literally. I think he came in second.
I know,
like 3 weeks ago.
But that train has to be pulling into the station.
No, it's
now.
pulling into the senior PGA station very soon. I think Jim is 48 or 49.
48.
Right, and also you got Lefty Mickelson that you have to, he's won it before, so.
And we always see Fred Couples, maybe, first 2 rounds,
Sure.
He's always in it.
No doubt. And again, who's to say there won't be a 1986 Jack Nicklaus at age 46 moment for one of the older golfers, right? Like a Steve Stricker, somebody like that.
No, I don't.
But the Masters is one of our favorite sporting events.
Super Bowl of golf.
And we know a couple people that have been there, and unfortunately, I've never stepped foot on Augusta. It's a bucket list item, but for those friends of ours and family that have been, they just say it's just outrageously cool.
Yeah.
And also for the Masters, a shout out to the women. They're actually hosting for the first time. The women's U.S. Amateur is taking place, I believe, this week or next week. I think it's this week. But a shout out to our old boy Hootie Johnson during the controversy that it was an all-male club and so on and so forth. But they're opening the doors to women, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, that was actually while we're on golf, because it was a pretty good thing on Real Sports on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
which I actually think is a great show. They do great things. There was a piece on
I've always been a big fan.
big piece on David Ferrity.
Yeah, I actually saw it.
Did you?
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty funny and he's pretty knowledgeable, and he was a former Ryder Cup guy and so forth. But been through hell and high water and stuff. But
his son passed away recently, and he's been battling addiction. But
it's one of the guys that finally came out, and it was open and direct, saying just.
He is just a straight shooter. It was a very emotional piece. He opened up, and he does like a comedy show now. I think he does like 15, 20 a year or so, where he gets a good audience.
And I actually, Mike Garvey from Naples actually went to see him.
Oh.
And got his picture with him and stuff, and said it was pretty funny.
I bet.
But it's rare to see a guy like that come clean and goes, when Gumbel asked him, "Have you been, clean for 10 years?" and he goes, "No," so he falls on and off the wagon kind of thing every now and then. But
he was brutally honest. He said the pain of losing his son was just so great, and he escaped. He went away to a buddy's house, and listen, the bottom line is he's back being sober.
Yeah.
And but I like Ferrity. It's taken me a while. His shtick, maybe 5-10 years ago, but
he's got a shtick.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of
him.
But
you rarely see a guy who's like on public and so forth, and the fact that network television stayed with him because he's very, very popular.
Right.
Very honest and open. I thought it was pretty cool. I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
Sure.
While we're on the golf thing.
Yeah, cool.
So, look, NBA's wrapping up. We can cover that. That's not a heck of a lot to talk about. But hockey is pretty good. And I know you've been bringing this up to me offline with Alex Ovechkin and his dominance in the league right now.
Right.
So, scored his 50th goal for the 8th time. And we were just talking before we went on the air about the only other two guys that got more 50-goal seasons, right? Mike Bossy and Wayne Gretzky. I think number 99, was it?
Yeah. I think he wore 99.
Yeah, Gretzky. I think he was pretty good, actually.
Bossy, I think, wore number 22. Is that right?
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, I one of our listeners, Greg Parabati, I've mentioned him before. He's one of the biggest hockey fans that I know. So he texted me, and he's like, Ovechkin, 50, right? And
again,
and then he's 238 goals away from Gretzky all time,
which I thought was like a DiMaggio unapproachable.
Totally, Lou Cy Young 511 victories type of thing.
And I'm surprised, but you're right. And he obviously look, these kids from hockey, and he came up probably when he was 19, right? Yeah. So he's 10 years in the league. He's only 31 years old.
Nah, he's 34. I think he just turned 34.
All right. But
however, he's not slowing down. And if he's putting 50 in freaking every year now, or 40 at least, he's got another 5-6 years. It doesn't look like he's going to slow down.
Can he possibly break Wayne Gretzky's record?
I'm going on record. I don't want him to. I don't want Ovechkin to be the all-time. I'm just being brutally honest here. But
you think it's possible?
He has well more than a puncher's chance of doing this, I think, now. So it's getting a bit tedious for me.
But that is quite a patented, goal-scoring thing. That they call it his office now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they know how to feed him, and he scores he scores 30, 40 of his goals doing it that way.
He's a hell of a hockey player, and I'm not diminishing his talent.
And I'm glad he got his Stanley Cup. I mean, I know
right?
He deserved it,
And another thing too is he's actually a good guy in Washington. He's a he gives back to the community, visits sick kids in the hospital.
Yeah,
I've seen some pieces on him, right? And but again, we idolize Wayne Gretzky here, so I would like to see the great one keep that. I mean, the assist record, that's Joe DiMaggio, Cy Young stuff. That's never gonna even probably be approachable.
But it was certainly worth mentioning. That was a milestone. His 50th goal, his 8th season.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like he's slowing down at all.
Right.
But 248 is a 238, 238.
238.
It's a long way away. So,
yeah. And then we'll cover the NHL as the playoffs approach, and I think they're one in the season down now.
Yeah, last week here.
Left. Rangers and Devils play tonight.
Meaningless.
Absolute meaningless. Although the Rangers, I think they won more games this year than I anticipated them winning. And again, they're in complete rebuild mode. The Islanders are ready for the playoffs. You know, I think they went through a little bit of a drought recently, but they're talented.
And you got to give Barry Trotz Coach of the Year. I mean, he took that team and he put them in contention. I mean, you know, they're going to make the playoffs. They may win one round, but you know,
we talked about it.
Past the second.
We're on the Tampa Bay bandwagon. Don't discount Toronto too. Toronto is a pretty damn good team, man, with Tavares and Austin Matthews and that crew. Mm-hmm. But I really think the East is. Better than the West.
And from a highlight perspective, I saw this guy Connor McDavid score this goal for Edmonton. It was unbelievable. Nice. Actually fed the puck between his legs on the way. It was one of the highlight goals in the past 20 years.
He's a supreme talent.
Wow.
He is.
It was unbelievable, actually.
And also the Boston Bruins have played well this year. They've had a rebound year. Don't discount them. They always play well. And actually, the Montreal Canadiens are back. They're going to make the playoffs. They've been quiet for, a decade?
Well, they're all going to have to knock off Tampa Bay because they are loaded.
Right.
They are loaded. So we'll follow up on the NHL next week. But obviously, this is, of course, the Frozen Four, right?
Yeah.
NCAA,
college.
And I think we got 4 teams: Minnesota, Duluth, Providence versus Denver and UMass. I think that's kind of new territory for UMass.
There's no question UMass being in the Final Four. So obviously UMass has invested in their hockey program. Listen, a lot of people know I went to Boston University, which is hockey rich, and there's just so much talent in New England. And plus you get kids from Canada and throughout the States. So now you're going to add UMass. And Quinnipiac got knocked out. Quinnipiac is, New England based, Connecticut. They lost. But Northeast hockey, and I think the fact that UMass has broke the door open and they're in the Final Four, I think that's a good thing.
And it is unusual not to see either Boston College or Boston University or somebody in there in the Final Four, but this is wide open. We've seen
Providence has a rich hockey program too, and actually Lou Lamoriello used to be the coach of Providence way back when, before he took over the Devils.
And Denver's got a legacy in this,
doubt.
This thing, so that's pretty cool too. So we'll see how that pans out. There was one team that we were talking before the show about who actually made it into the tournament. Was American International, and actually they beat former NCAA champs St. Cloud.
Wow. Okay. Right.
And so like I said, hockey in college is getting pretty good. When you don't have a Boston U or a Boston College in there, the competition's starting to ramp up.
And there's going to be a lot of future NHLers in this Final Four, I'm sure. So we highly recommend to watch it. It's fun hockey to watch.
It sure is. So listen, that's great. We covered a lot of stuff tonight, and we'll certainly cover just as much tomorrow. So let's at least first shout out, Steve. This is our shout out segment to our fans, and
I'm going to shout out to one of my friends who's actually a nice follower of our show and has complimented us many times, Mr. Corey Cole of Oakland, New Jersey.
Thank you, Corey.
Corey's a retired U.S. Marshal, so thank you for your service on that front too. And I just wanted to shout out to Corey. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Excellent. And of course, before we always sign off, we always mention our sponsors, right?
Yeah.
Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. Loyal from the start. Harley Davidson of Utica. D. Filippi's Bakery of Monticello, New York. And actually, we have a new sponsor this week. So I wanted to give this kind of a split on the shout out here for Coriano Trucking Incorporated.
Coriano Trucking Incorporated.
That's right.
Awesome. Welcome.
Yeah. They get things from point A to point B on time and as asked.
Awesome.
So, welcome to Coriano Trucking Incorporated. Welcome to the show, and we thank you for your sponsorship.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining the sponsorship. Thank you.
So we'll talk next week, guys. Steve, anything else you want to wrap up?
No, we'll talk next week. Final Four coming up.
Yep.
And have a great week, everybody. And please, if you have any questions or comments, please email us at sportswithmono@gmail.com.
And we shall certainly respond, and we'll bring it up on our next show.
Okay.
Thanks again, guys.
Thank you. Bye.